My mother's voice sliced through the air like broken glass. She doesn't deserve a single penny. Talia contributed nothing to this family. Her face was red, twisted with rage I'd never seen directed at me so openly. My father stood up so fast, his chair scraped against the floor, making everyone in the conference room flinch. He pointed at me with a trembling finger. Mom babied you your entire life. You never earned anything. I sat frozen, hands clasped tight in my lap, feeling every eye in the room burning into my skin. Relatives whispered. The attorney adjusted his glasses. Even the receptionist peeked through the doorway. The humiliation was deliberate, calculated, public. Then Mr. Harrison, the attorney, raised his hand calmly. Mr. and Mrs. Brooks, please sit down. Your mother's will contains some unexpected provisions. My parents went still, faces pale. And that's when everything changed. My name is Talia Brooks, and 6 months before that moment, I had no idea my grandmother was planning to save my life. I wiped down the mahogany display table for the 3rd time that morning, while my boss, Mr. Caldwell, laughed loudly across the showroom. Brilliant work on that sale, Melissa. You really know how to close deals. I glanced over. Melissa stood there soaking up praise while I scrubbed dried coffee rings from furniture. A customer approached me, pointing at a scratched nightstand. This piece is damaged. I want a discount. Before I could respond, Melissa appeared beside me. Talia probably knocked it over during inventory. She's clumsy. Mr. Caldwell didn't even investigate. Talia, fix this. You're responsible for damages. I felt my face burn, but I nodded and led the customer away. This was my life at Brooks Home Furniture. Invisible when things went right, blamed when anything went wrong. It mirrored my family perfectly. At home, my parents barely acknowledged me unless they needed something. My younger brother got attention, praise, encouragement. I got silence and criticism. I had learned to make myself smaller, quieter, less trouble. But exhaustion was building inside me like pressure in a sealed container. My phone buzzed during my lunch break. Mum's name flashed on the screen. My stomach knotted before I even answered. Grandma Elise is back in the hospital, she said, her tone flat and businesslike. You should visit, but don't make a scene. She doesn't need extra stress right now. By scene, she meant, don't cry, don't ask questions, don't remind anyone you exist. I swallowed hard. Is she okay? She's fine, just old age catching up, visit this week. She hung up before I could respond. I stared at my phone, guilt washing over me. Grandma Elise was the only person in my family who truly saw me, who asked about my day and actually listened to my answers. She taught me things, encouraged me, believed I was capable. I left work early that afternoon claiming a dentist appointment. Mr. Caldwell frowned but said nothing. As I drove to the hospital, I prepared myself for the familiar ache of seeing Grandma weak and frail. But nothing prepared me for what she would tell me. Grandma Elise's hand felt paper thin in mine. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and cafeteria food, but her eyes sparkled when she saw me. There's my smart girl, she whispered, squeezing my fingers. Did you finish reading those investment books I gave you? I nodded quickly. Yes, all 3. I've been practicing with the spreadsheets you showed me too. Her smile widened. Good, you're going to need that knowledge, sweetheart. Keep studying. I didn't understand why she kept pushing financial literacy on me. I worked retail and barely made enough to cover rent. Grandma, why do I need to know about compound interest and portfolio diversification? She looked at me for a long moment, something sad and knowing in her expression. Because people underestimate you, Talia. Your parents, your boss, everyone, let them. Quiet strength is far more dangerous than loud cruelty. A chill ran down my spine. What do you mean? She patted my hand. You'll understand soon enough. Just promise me you'll keep learning. Promise me you won't let them break you. I promised, though I didn't know who them was. Grandma Elise passed away 3 weeks later. The funeral was packed with relatives I barely recognized, all dressed in black, all wearing expressions that looked more calculating than sad. My parents greeted everyone with fixed smiles, their voices honey-sweet as they accepted condolences. My mother pulled me close during the service, whispering, "Try not to embarrass us today. Stand up straight." I stood beside my father afterward, listening to conversations I wasn't supposed to hear. "This will solve everything," he murmured to my Uncle Raymond. Mum was sitting on a fortune. My stomach twisted. They were already dividing up her money, her home, her belongings like vultures picking at bones. I thought about Grandma's hand in mine, her words about quiet strength. That night, I sat alone in my apartment and cried until my chest ached, not just because she was gone, but because I realized how truly alone I was now. She had been my only anchor, my only proof that I mattered. Without her, I was drifting in a family that didn't want me. Monday morning at work felt heavier than usual. Mr. Caldwell gathered everyone in the showroom before opening. "I've made a decision about the spring launch project," he announced, looking directly at Melissa. "Melissa will be taking the lead role." My heart dropped. He had promised me that position 3 months ago. I had been preparing display schedules, researching vendors, creating presentations. Melissa hadn't done anything except schmooze with clients. She turned to me with fake sympathy. "Oh, but Talia's been working so hard on the preliminary work. Maybe she could assist me." Mr. Caldwell waved his hand dismissively. "Talia's better suited for supporting roles. Melissa, you'll start immediately." I forced myself to smile and nod. My fingers tightened around my coffee cup until I thought it might crack. That afternoon, I updated Melissa's schedule and handed over my research folders. She barely looked at them. "Thanks," she said, already scrolling through her phone. I returned to my desk, swallowing rage that tasted like copper. This was my life, passed over, overlooked, used for labor but never rewarded, just like at home. The will reading was scheduled for a Thursday afternoon. I almost didn't go, assuming I'd receive nothing and endure another round of family judgment. But something made me show up. My parents arrived dressed like they were attending a gala, my mother in pearls, my father in an expensive suit. They barely acknowledged me as I slipped into a chair at the back of Mr. Harrison's conference room. The attorney opened a thick folder, cleared his throat, and began. "Elise Brooks created a comprehensive trust 6 years ago," my mother gasped. 6 years? She never mentioned updating her will. "Mr." Harrison continued calmly. "She appointed a trustee to oversee all distributions and financial decisions." My father leaned forward eagerly. "Who's the trustee?" Mr. Harrison looked directly at me. "Talia Brooks." The room went silent, then exploded. My father shot to his feet. "What, that girl can't even manage her own checkbook?" My mother's face turned crimson. "This is ridiculous. She has no experience." I sat frozen, barely breathing as accusations flew around me like missiles, but underneath the shock something sparked to life. A tiny flame of understanding. This was why Grandma trained me. Mr. Harrison raised his voice over the chaos. "Mrs. Brooks specifically chose Talia because of her financial education and judgment. The trust is irrevocable." My parents turned on me like wolves. "You knew about this," my mother hissed. I shook my head, finding my voice. "I had no idea." My father jabbed a finger toward me. "She poisoned Mum against us, filled her head with lies." Mr. Harrison intervened sharply. "Mr. Brooks, your mother was of sound mind. She made these decisions independently over several years." He explained the terms. Grandma's house, her investment accounts, her savings, all placed in a progressive trust that I would manage. Distributions would be made according to her written instructions, which only I and Mr. Harrison could access. My uncle demanded, "How much are we talking about?" Mr. Harrison closed the folder. "That information is confidential between the trustee and myself." The meeting ended with my parents glaring at me like I'd committed murder. As I left, my mother grabbed my arm. "We need to talk. Soon." Her grip was tight enough to bruise. My mother appeared at my apartment the next morning, unannounced and uninvited. I opened the door to find her standing there, arms crossed, face cold. "We need to discuss the trust," she said, pushing past me into my living room. I closed the door slowly. Okay. She didn't sit. "Your father and I need access to those funds. We have expenses, plans that your grandmother knew about. It's only fair that you release the money to us." My hands trembled slightly, but I kept my voice steady. "I have to follow Grandma's instructions. That's my legal obligation." Her expression hardened like concrete. "Legal obligation? We're your parents, Talia. Family comes before paperwork." I met her eyes. Grandma was family too. I'm honouring her wishes. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to something dangerous. "You're choosing a dead woman over your living parents, over the people who raised you, fed you, gave you everything." I wanted to laugh. They gave me nothing but criticism and neglect, but I stayed calm. I'm following the will. Nothing else. She left without another word, slamming my door hard enough to rattle the walls. The next day at work, Mr. Caldwell called me into his office. My stomach dropped as I sat across from his desk. "Talia, I received a concerning call from your parents yesterday," he began, looking uncomfortable. "They mentioned you're under significant stress right now. Family difficulties." I blinked. "What?" "They said you've been emotionally unstable lately, prone to outbursts. They're worried about your judgment." Heat flooded my face. "I haven't had any outbursts. I've been completely professional." He shrugged, his expression dismissive. "I'm just saying maybe you should step back from major responsibilities right now, focus on simple tasks until you're feeling better." Rage built in my chest, but I swallowed it down. They'd reached into my workplace now, poisoning my reputation, sabotaging my job. My parents were trying to make me seem incompetent, unstable, unfit to manage the trust. I walked back to my desk on shaky legs. Melissa smirked at me from across the room. She knew. Everyone probably knew. I opened my laptop and started documenting everything, dates, conversations, and witnesses. If they wanted war, I'd give them one. But I'd fight smart. The second will reading came 2 weeks later. Mr. Harrison had requested all beneficiaries attend for additional clarifications. My parents arrived looking smug, like they'd figured out how to override Grandma's decisions. I sat, quietly, waiting. Mr. Harrison pulled out another document. "Elise included a protective clause in the trust. I'm required to read it aloud." He adjusted his glasses. "No distributions shall be made to any beneficiary who attempts to pressure, manipulate, sabotage, or coerce the trustee in any way. Any such attempts result in immediate and permanent forfeiture of inheritance." My father's face went white. "That's not legal." "It's completely legal," Mr. Harrison replied calmly, "and enforceable. I've documented several instances already." My mother's eyes snapped to me, burning with accusation. "You told him we visited you." I hadn't needed to. She'd made her threats in my apartment where I'd quietly recorded everything on my phone, legal in our state with single-party consent. Grandma had taught me that too. My father slammed his palm on the desk. "She planned this. She wanted to turn Talia against us." Mr. Harrison closed his folder. "She wanted to protect her granddaughter. Meeting adjourned." That weekend, I attended the first of the investment classes Grandma had prepaid for me, a series of seminars on portfolio management, estate planning, and wealth preservation. I walked into the conference centre feeling like an imposter among successful-looking professionals in business suits, but the instructor, a woman named Miss Park, greeted me warmly. "You must be Talia. Your grandmother spoke highly of you." My throat tightened. "You knew her?" "She contacted me 2 years ago, set everything up. She said you were bright and capable, just needed confidence." I absorbed every word of that first class, learned about asset allocation, risk management, tax strategies. The numbers made sense to me in a way they never had before. By the third class, I was asking questions, taking detailed notes, staying after to discuss concepts. My confidence grew with each session. The anger inside me sharpened into something clearer, more focused. Strategy. I wasn't just learning about money. I was learning how to protect myself, how to build something they couldn't take away. Grandma had given me weapons. Now I was learning how to use them. Everything exploded at work on a Tuesday afternoon. I had spent weeks building a comprehensive inventory database, tracking every piece, every sale, every customer interaction. Then it vanished. Every file deleted from the system. I stared at my screen in disbelief, my chest tight with panic. Mr. Caldwell stormed over. "Talia, what happened to the inventory files?" "I don't know, they were just deleted." He laughed, cruel and sharp. "Convenient, right before the audit." Melissa appeared beside him, her face arranged in concern. "Maybe it was an accident." "Talia's been so stressed lately." I wanted to scream. "I didn't delete anything. Someone else accessed my account." Mr. Caldwell waved me off. "This is the last mistake I'm tolerating, Talia. One more incident, and you're done." I returned to my desk, hands shaking with rage and humiliation. But I wasn't helpless. I'd learned from Grandma to back up everything. I had copies stored in cloud drives, time-stamped and secure, and I had access to the system logs that would show exactly who deleted those files. I just needed the right moment to use that information. The right moment came faster than expected. I was in the break room making coffee when I heard Melissa talking to another co-worker near the lockers. "Her parents actually called Caldwell directly," Melissa said, laughing quietly. "They asked him to push her out, make her look incompetent, something about a family trust they need her to mess up." My hand froze on the coffee pot. "They're paying him?" the co-worker asked. "Not directly, but her dad plays golf with Caldwell's brother. It's all connected." I stood there, hidden by the wall, my entire body burning. The betrayal was coordinated. Planned. My parents had weaponized my workplace against me, turning my boss into an ally in their scheme to break me down. They wanted me unstable, desperate, vulnerable enough to hand over control of the trust. I poured my coffee calmly, walked back to my desk, and opened a new document. I started writing down everything. Dates, times, conversations, witnesses. I recorded Melissa's confession on my phone from the break room. I pulled system logs showing her username deleting my files. I wasn't losing control. I was building an arsenal. And when I was ready, I would fire back. I requested a meeting with Mr. Harrison the following week. He listened carefully as I explained everything: my parents' pressure, the workplace sabotage, Melissa's admission. "Do you have documentation?" he asked. I handed him a folder thick with evidence, printed emails, recorded conversations, system logs, timestamps. He reviewed it silently, his expression growing more serious. "This is harassment designed to compromise your judgment," he said finally. "It also violates the protective clause." "What does that mean?" "It means your parents have forfeited their inheritance, permanently." I felt dizzy. "All of it?" He nodded. "Every dollar. The trust will redistribute according to your grandmother's secondary instructions." I sat back processing this. Grandma had planned for this scenario. She knew they might try to manipulate me, so she'd built in consequences. Mr. Harrison leaned forward. "Talia, your grandmother left you more than money. She left you protection, education, and choice. Don't let their cruelty make you doubt her faith in you." I left his office feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Power. Not over others, but over my own life. And it was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. That evening, I finally opened the full financial statements Mr. Harrison had given me. I'd been too scared to look before, overwhelmed by responsibility. Now I needed to know what I was protecting. The numbers made my head spin. Grandma's investments weren't modest retirement savings, they were substantial. Diverse portfolios, rental properties, bonds, stocks in major companies, everything carefully maintained and growing steadily over decades. She'd been wealthy, truly wealthy, and she'd hidden it from everyone except her financial advisors. I thought about her small house, her simple clothes, her quiet life. She could have lived like royalty, but she chose simplicity. Now I understood why. She was testing everyone, watching who loved her for herself and who waited for her death like vultures. My parents had failed that test spectacularly. I whispered to the empty room, "You trusted me with everything." The weight of it pressed down on my shoulders, but also lifted something inside me. She believed I could handle this. She believed I was strong enough, smart enough, good enough. Maybe it was time I believed it too. The incident that shifted everything happened on a busy Saturday. A wealthy customer complained because a luxury sectional sofa had been mispriced, showing $1,200 instead of $3,000 on the tag. Mr. Caldwell immediately turned to me. "Talia, did you update pricing yesterday?" "No, I was working inventory in the back." He frowned. "Someone changed this. It's your section." Melissa stepped forward quickly. "I saw her near that display yesterday afternoon." The lie was so smooth, so practiced, but this time I didn't panic. I pulled out my phone and opened the staff scheduling app. I was in the warehouse from 2 until closing yesterday. There are security cameras that will confirm it. Then I walked to the office computer and pulled up the pricing system logs. The tag was updated yesterday at 2:48 by Melissa's username. The entire sales floor went quiet. Melissa's face drained of colour. Mr. Caldwell stared at the screen, then at Melissa, then at me. "I must have clicked wrong," Melissa stammered. "It was an accident." I met her eyes calmly. "Was deleting my inventory files also an accident?" "Mr. Caldwell looked like he'd been slapped." The customer watched this drama unfold with raised eyebrows. In that moment, the power dynamic shattered and rearranged itself completely. I was done being their scapegoat. My parents invited me to dinner 3 days later. The message was casual, friendly even. "We miss you, sweetheart. Let's talk over a nice meal." I knew it was a trap, but I went anyway, curious to see what strategy they'd try next. My father grilled steaks in the backyard, while my mother set the table with her best dishes. They were performing normalcy, pretending the past months hadn't happened. "How's work?" Dad asked, smiling. "Fine," I replied carefully. My mother brought out salad. "We've been thinking about how hard this must be for you, managing Grandma's affairs. So much responsibility." "Here it comes," I thought. My father cleared his throat. "We want to help. Take some of the burden off your shoulders." I cut into my steak. "The trust is managed. It's not a burden." "But if you just released the funds," he continued, his voice honey-sweet, "we could all move forward. No more tension, no more lawyers. Just family." There it was. The real reason for dinner. My mother added, "Grandma would want us united, not fighting over money." I put down my fork. "Grandma knew exactly what she wanted. That's why she wrote such specific instructions." My father's smile faltered. I excused myself politely and left before dessert. They thought I was weak. They had no idea how wrong they were. The next morning I called Mr. Harrison. "I want to request a formal audit of the trust and Grandma's final years." "Why?" he asked. "I have a feeling there's something we're missing. Something about my parents' financial relationship with Grandma before she died." He was quiet for a moment. "That's a serious investigation. It could uncover uncomfortable truths. I need to know the whole story." The audit took 3 weeks. Mr. Harrison hired forensic accountants who combed through years of bank records, checks, transfers, and credit card statements. When he called me back to his office, his expression was grim. "Talia, your parents took money from your grandmother repeatedly over the past 5 years. Significant amounts." My stomach dropped. "Like loans?" "No. They claim they were loans, but no repayment agreements were ever signed. Your grandmother's notes indicate she felt pressured, even threatened." He showed me the evidence. 20,000 here, 15,000 there. Over $200,000 total taken through guilt, manipulation, and emotional blackmail. My parents had been bleeding Grandma dry while she was alive, then planned to take everything after her death. No wonder she changed her will. No wonder she chose me. Rage burned through me, white-hot and clarifying. Armed with the audit results, Mr. Harrison filed paperwork to permanently freeze my parents' inheritance. The protective clause wasn't just about protecting me anymore. It was about honoring Grandma's wishes and exposing their exploitation. Mr. Caldwell called me into his office that same week. "Corporate reviewed your documentation about the inventory situation," he said stiffly. And the pricing incident. I waited, barely breathing. You handled everything professionally and correctly. Melissa has been let go, effective immediately. He wouldn't apologize, wouldn't admit his role in undermining me. His discomfort was apology enough. I returned to my desk and typed out my resignation letter. 2 weeks' notice, professional and brief. I was done shrinking to fit their expectations. Done accepting scraps and abuse. Mr. Caldwell read my resignation with shock. You're quitting? Yes. I have other opportunities. I didn't. Not yet. But I would. Because for the first time in my life, I believed I deserved better. And that belief was more powerful than any job, any family approval, any external validation. I was finally choosing myself. The audit results became official 3 weeks later. Mr. Harrison sent formal notification to my parents that their inheritance was frozen permanently due to financial exploitation and violation of the protective clause. My mother called me screaming. How dare you investigate us? We're your parents. I held the phone away from my ear. You stole from Grandma. She gave us that money. She wanted to help. Then why didn't you sign loan agreements? Why did she write in her private notes that she felt coerced? Silence. Then my father grabbed the phone. You've ruined us, Talia. We needed that money. We have debts, obligations. That's not my problem. You wanted this, he shouted. You wanted to hurt us. No, I said quietly. You hurt yourselves. Grandma knew exactly who you were. That's why she protected her estate from you. He made a choked sound, somewhere between rage and desperation. For the first time in my life, I heard my father sound small, defeated, scared. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then I remembered every cruel word, every dismissal, every time they made me feel worthless. I hung up. My father cornered me in the grocery store parking lot a few days later. I was loading bags into my car when he appeared beside me, his face haggard. Talia, please, you have to understand. I straightened slowly. Understand what? We made mistakes, but we're family. You can't just cut us off. His voice cracked. We'll lose the house. Everything. I looked at him. Really looked at him. For years I'd seen him as powerful, intimidating, someone whose approval I desperately wanted. Now I saw him clearly. A man who exploited his own mother, who sabotaged his own daughter, who cared more about money than people. You didn't lose anything, I said calmly. You threw it away. Grandma gave you chances. You chose greed. She turned you against us. No, she showed me the truth, that there's a difference. He grabbed my arm, his grip desperate. You can't do this. I pulled away firmly. Watch me. As I drove away, I saw him in my rearview mirror, standing alone in the parking lot, looking smaller than I ever thought possible. The man who'd made me feel insignificant my entire life was finally, truly insignificant, and I felt nothing but relief. Mr. Harrison called me to his office for one final meeting. Your grandmother left something else for you, he said, pulling out a sealed envelope. She instructed me to give this to you only after everything's settled. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter, Grandma's familiar looping script filling 2 pages. My dearest Talia, it began. If you're reading this, it means you've weathered the storm. I'm so proud of you. She explained everything in the letter, how she'd watched my parents become greedy and cruel over the years, how she'd seen them treat me like a burden while spoiling my brother, how she'd planned carefully to protect me and give me the tools to build my own life. You were always the strong one, she wrote, quiet, thoughtful, kind. Those aren't weaknesses, they're your greatest strengths. Don't let anyone make you believe otherwise. The envelope also contained a deed to her lakeside cabin and account numbers for investments only I could access. The full scope of her wealth finally revealed. But the letter was the real treasure, proof that someone saw me, valued me, loved me unconditionally. I cried in Mr. Harrison's office, clutching the letter to my chest. 6 months later, everything had changed. I moved into Grandma's cabin permanently, renovating it slowly with my own hands. The lake stretched outside my windows, peaceful and endless. I started a small interior design consulting business, something I'd always dreamed about but never admitted out loud. Using Grandma's money wisely, I invested in education, equipment, and marketing. My first clients came through word of mouth, then more, then more. My designs were featured in a local magazine. I hired an assistant. The business grew steadily, naturally, built on actual skill rather than office politics. Every morning I woke to sunlight dancing across water. I drank coffee on the dock, planned my day, felt peace settling into my bones. My parents tried contacting me a few times, emails begging for reconciliation. I didn't respond. Some bridges needed to burn. Melissa sent a LinkedIn connection request. I blocked her immediately. My brother reached out once asking why I'd hurt Mum and Dad. I explained everything in one long message. He never replied. I didn't need his understanding. I had something better. Freedom, self-respect, a life I'd built on my own terms. And that was everything. I visited Grandma's grave on the anniversary of her death. The cemetery was quiet, spring flowers blooming along the paths. I placed fresh lilies on her headstone, my fingers tracing her name carved in granite. I didn't let them break me, I whispered. I kept learning, kept fighting, kept choosing myself. Thank you for seeing me when no one else did. The wind rustled through trees overhead, carrying the scent of lake water and pine. I felt her presence somehow, warm and approving. The cabin is beautiful. The business is thriving. I'm happy, Grandma. Actually, genuinely happy. I stayed for a while telling her about my life, my plans, my dreams, talking to her the way I'd always talked to her, honest and open. When I finally walked away, the air felt lighter. My parents didn't lose because I won some game. They lost because they chose cruelty, greed, and manipulation over love. They destroyed their own chances at happiness. I won because I finally chose myself. Because I honored someone who believed in me. Because I turned pain into strength and betrayal into boundaries. Grandma's will didn't just change my finances, it changed everything about how I saw myself and what I deserved. And that made all the difference.